And you also do the dialysis work?
I do.
Is that full-time?
What do you mean by full-time?
When judges, lawyers, and witnesses decide to love their microphones, then incredible real-time transcription will become commonplace.
Well, it typically means 40 hours a week, something like that?
I wish I worked 40 hours a week. And so does my family.
So the question's still out there. Do you work?
I work a great deal of hours every week.
Okay, how many hours do you work in dialysis?
If witnesses would just wait 2 seconds before they answer, and lawyers would wait 2 seconds after the witness answers. Right now, Otter would timestamp each question and answer like you see in this exchange at this time.
You know, I'm not being glib, but the real answer is I see every patient every week, and I work as long as I need to. It's variable. Sometimes it's many, many hours. Sometimes it's less hours.
Approximately how many hours a week do you work in dialysis?
I don't know. I couldn't quantify that, sir. I don't keep track of that.
You can't give me a range?
I really can't. I honestly, I don't count them. I don't track them.
Is there a reason why it's so difficult for you to answer my questions and it was so easy for you to answer Mr. Chernoff's?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained. You need not respond. Your next question, Mr. Wall?
You can't answer how many hours you work in dialysis. Is that correct?
What you're asking me is extremely nonspecific, and I'm telling you honestly, I don't measure.
How many hours did you work in dialysis last week?
I don't know.
I was specific.
I was at the dialysis unit Monday morning and afternoon, Tuesday for a few hours, Friday for a few hours. That's my typical week. Sometimes I go on Thursdays, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I go on Tuesdays, sometimes I don't.
Would you agree that in the field of addiction medicine, that it needs to be confronted as a real clinical disease with very real clinical roots?
It's absolutely a brain disease, and it needs to be treated as such.
And that's one of the reasons why, to competently handle it, you should have experience to handle it, correct?
I believe you're exactly correct. Experience is really important.
And from the Cliffside Malibu website, where your picture is posted, it states, as is true of any disease, addiction can only be overcome with intensive medical specialized care.
Which is provided at Cliffside Malibu, not by Dr. Waldman all the time.
But you agree with that assessment?
I think it's a great assessment.
And you, of course, in your experience, have had patients come to you that had previously received subpar or incompetent addiction care and then came to you and you were able to help them, correct?
Your words, sir, not mine.
I'm sorry, are you going to?
I have no answer. I think I never made such statement.
The viewer is advised, unless the lawyers want to view a real-time transcript, it is not necessary to record a deposition or a trial in real time. The videographer, digital court reporter for depositions, or deputy court clerk for court hearings will, however, digitally record an MP3 or MP4 as the case may be with radio television quality, meaning 720 kilobits per second for audio and 1020 kilobits per second or higher for MP4. Then upload the media to AMVSR via Dropbox or Google Drive for processing, and the parties will have a working rough draft to work with that same day for them to work with while AMVSR prepares the official certified transcript.
I didn't ask you if you made that statement. I'm asking you a question.
No, you're actually putting the words in my mouth. Would you
Your Honor, would the court instruct the witness to answer the question?
Thank you. Cross-examination is, in essence, putting words in your mouth which you can either accept or reject.
I reject.
Okay.
So you have never had a patient come to you that you determined had received incompetent care and you were subsequently able to help them. You've never had that happen?
Sir, I never embellish what I do by denigrating what one of my colleagues does. Addiction treatment, casting dispersion at prior treatment, it's not necessary. When somebody comes to me for treatment, many times they've had prior treatment. Their success or failure of treatment is not a function of who treated them. It's a serious illness. Failure rate is twice the success rate everywhere.
So now, it's not a function of who treated them. That plays no role?
What I said to you in answer to your question again, sir, is that when I accept somebody in treatment, I don't speak negatively about their prior treatment.
I didn't ask you
Or,
to.
yes, you did, or the treatment providers.
Okay. Mr. Waldman, have you ever had
Dr.
someone, Dr. Waldman, have you ever had someone come to you and you've had an opportunity to review their prior care? Have you ever had that happen?
What do you mean by review their prior care?
However you want to interpret it.
You're asking the question, sir. If you ask me a
Your Honor, will
specific
the
question,
court instruct the witness to answer the very simple question?
Are you able to, or do you want it re-asked?
I would like it re-asked, please.
Mr. Walgren?
Have you ever, by any means, whatever you want to put into your answer, have you ever had a patient come to you where you evaluated, by whatever means you want to say, Dr. Waldman, where you've evaluated their prior care as it relates to addiction medicine?
Yes.
Okay. And have you ever had a situation where you did such an evaluation and determined that they did not receive proper care as it relates to addiction medicine?
Yes.
There. Thank you. And when you've had those situations where you determined they had not received proper care as it relates to addiction medicine, have you, as a specialist, been able to help them?
Sometimes I'm sure I have.
Thank you.
At this time, the court calls the people of the state of California versus Timothy Richard Heidecker, case number 02-CF025. Defendant is charged with counts 1 through 20 of second-degree felony murder under Section 541B of the California Penal Code.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good morning. We're going to be spending some time together over the next few days.
When a videographer or digital court reporter is officiating at a deposition, arbitration, or other quasi-judicial hearing, they will note in the window in the bottom left, this is where they insert comments, initials of lawyers who object, or making comments for the record, indicating that Exhibit X is marked for identification, enter the Bates range of the document, note spellings, and more. This all goes to help AMVSR LLC to create an excellent certified final transcript.
To answer one simple question. Did Timothy Heidecker is Timothy Heidecker a killer? He filled the lungs of his innocent victims with a chemical cocktail, which he knew to be toxic. You're going to learn about the Electric Sun Desert Music Festival.
I make the notation in the digital court reporter's note-taking window, lower left. I note that as the prosecutor and defense counsel walk around the courtroom, away from the fixed microphones, that the quality of the audio does not suffer. This means they are wearing hidden wireless lapel mics. Congratulations.
An unpermitted, illegal, chaotic event operated by Mr. Heidecker. An event that you will learn was a fraudulent commercial scheme. Mr. Heidecker repeatedly, misleadingly, and fraudulently referred to Mr. Sanchez as Dr. Sand. You think Dr. Sand, it's such an endearing term. It's almost someone that I'd bring my children to. These children trusted Dr. Sand and Mr. Heidecker when they bought those vaporizers at the Electric Sun Music Festival from them. We will also ask witnesses to testify as to the moral character of Mr. Heidecker. Or maybe I should say amoral. and fulfill your duty to see that justice is done. And Mr. Heidecker is convicted on all charges.
20 kids dead, all as a result of the misdeeds of a madman. He called himself Dr. San. In this case, ladies and gentlemen, there is a 21st victim of Mr. Sanchez, my client, Timothy Heidecker, a man whose only crime was believing in himself and in his young fans and wanting the two parties to get together at this ambitious and benevolent music festival. And Mr. Heidecker, in fact, since the tragic death of his own son, little Tom Cruise Heidecker, has devoted himself 100% to making the world a better place through his music and the poetry of his lyrics. Now let's honor the memories of the Electric Sun 20 and make sure that Timothy Heidecker does not become victim 21. Let's make sure that this innocent man walks free.
I only saw 3 porta potties there, and later I heard that one of those overflowed, so they locked it. And then people started squatting and peeing next to the stage because there weren't any trees or bushes or anything that they could go behind for privacy. The sound.
We have a fly in the room.
How do you know that the defendant was the person you remember being there?
Or forget him.
And why is that?
He ran over my friend's foot with a golf cart.
Wow. Your witness?
Your Honor, I have no questions for this witness at this time.
You're excused. Thank you, Ms. Soroki.
There was one table with some Austin peanut butter crackers laid out.
Why would any assistant public defender or assistant state attorney insist on 19th and 20th centuries technologies to deliver transcripts whose prices were justified back in the day compared to what Otter's 21st century approach offers? Instant, verifiable, real-time transcripts costing a fraction of what they are now paying.
But it was open to everyone, so
So the only food you saw was water and peanut butter crackers.
that is correct. And I only got like one puff of it before it started leaking on me, and it got all over my joggers and kind of ruined my pants. And when I was trying to fix it to see what was wrong with it, it kind of just broke apart, and there were no trash cans at the festival, so I put the pieces on the ground and covered them with dirt. What I experienced was like burning in my lungs. I felt the juice go all the way down through my throat, and I started getting very sweaty after that. I started having trouble breathing, someone who was falling down and twitching, and then I saw someone else try to run up and help them, but she was just falling over and having muscle spasms, and I saw this happening to multiple people. Some of them were foaming out of the mouth. I just remember the sound of the music playing, DKR singing empty bottle, empty bottle, empty bottle, over and over again, and I'll never forget that sound. I thought they would see this and stop the festival, but they just kept playing. In the parking lot, we did hotbox in my car.
Can you tell the jury what you mean by doing a hotbox?
That's where you smoke a lot of weed and the car is full of the fumes.
This is,
Okay.
we need, do we
Your
need to go
Honor,
further?
could you direct the witness not to?
I'm asking if we need to, I'm sorry.
Mr.
but-
Heidecker, please allow your counsel to speak for you. That's
I'm
what
doing
he's
my
being
job.
paid for.
Well, you're not doing your job.
Mr.
you're not-
Heidecker.
Okay. And also, why isn't he bringing up, I'm sorry.
Mr. Heidecker, would you like us to add a contempt charge to what you're on trial here for today?
So when you said that you looked around and didn't see security, isn't it fair to say that your senses were impaired the moment you stepped on those grounds?
I would say that with my experience with marijuana, I was...
If you are a service provider that records or accepts audio or video from third parties taken in depositions, arbitrations, courtroom hearings, and the audio does not match or better the high quality you are now hearing, we will refuse to accept the project.
able to remember things accurately.
There were 2 large moving vans parked in front of the entrance, so we were not able to get in.
Okay.
They were illegally parked in a fire lane. When we first got to the scene, there were multiple casualties, at least a dozen at first. We were referred to Dr. San, but he did not appear to have any medical capabilities, nor did he seem to be coherent.
Now, was Mr. Sanchez attempting to help the injured?
He did give one of the injured some water, but otherwise he was just placing crystals around the bodies.
I'm sorry, crystals? What do you mean?
Crystals like you would buy at a gift shop. He was placing them around the bodies of the deceased.
Did you make any efforts to find any other entrances?
To our knowledge, there was not any other entrance where we could have gotten our truck through.
Do you notice there's a pedestrian entrance just a short distance from the vehicle entrance?
Yes, sir, but we would not have been able to get our truck through that entrance.
Fucking ground.
Mr. Heidecker, you are that close.
Approach
You
the
are
bench.
that close.
Approach the bench.
Relax, relax.
No, you may not approach the bench.
Do you want to take a break? All right, I think we need a brief recess.
Yes.
I certainly agree. We are in recess.
Thank you.
I do.
How old are the kids?
My oldest son, James, turns 9 next month, so he's still 8. And my youngest son, Cash, he is 5.5. He'll turn 6 in July.
Do you see the children?
Prior to my incarceration, I saw them very often, about once every 2 or 3 weeks.
All right.
And I also FaceTime with them, 4 to 5 days a week in the evenings for varying lengths of time depending on what their attention span was.
What was the name of your ex-wife?
Her name was Annie Jacob. Now it's Annie Morrison.
All right. Annie Morrison?
Yes, sir.
And who was Valerie McDaniel?
Well, to me or just in general?
No, well, let's talk about in general.
Valerie McDaniel was a woman who was a veterinarian, and my girlfriend, or common law wife, I guess if we qualified for that, towards the end of her death, she was a lot of things. I'm not really sure what you're asking.
All right. Well, to you personally, you were together romantically, correct?
Yes.
For how long a period of time?
We lived together for about 3 or 2.5 months, but we had been romantically involved for quite some time, more than that.
How much time, approximately?
Probably a couple of years.
All right. Now,
Can I retract my last statement? It was not a continuous relationship. We had an interlude in 2014, and then there was a long break where we were just friends. And then, after I broke up with my former girlfriend, we rekindled the romantic part of the relationship.
okay. And your former girlfriend was whom?
A woman by the name of Megan Louise Verikis.
All right. And you've heard Megan testify in this court?
I have.
All right. Now, tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury about your relationship with Megan. When did you start?
We met during my divorce proceedings. I lived in a couple of hotels in Pittsburgh. I lived in the Wyndham Grand for quite some time, and I decided to move hotels, and I was given a referral to a place called the Cambria Suites, which is right next to the console center where the Penguins play, and I checked in there, I think, in the beginning of 2014, sometime in early January, and I met Megan there.
Okay. And tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury about Mac McDaniel. Had you ever met him?
I met him a couple of times when he lived next door to my mother. I think once when I came down to visit, and then once when I moved down here. I stayed with my mother I removed back to Houston in 2014. I stayed with my mother for a couple of weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks actually, more like a month. And I had run into him a couple of times on the street.